It happens.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Wednesday. The week is climbing along. Ryan Day is going to name Will Howard the starting quarterback. It's already official inside the Woody Hayes. That's how the team is operating. It's not official to the media, but it is done. There are a lot of spots that are being clinched this week. Congrats, Sonny Styles. The guard spot is still up in the air because of the ear, nose, throat, and foot and mad cow mouth thing that they had where these guys were kind of all over the place. So I think that the battle between Tigra and Luke Montgomery is going to keep rolling on into next week. And there's some other issues on the O-line that they got to get cleaned up, some injuries. We're going to get into that. What does it mean? But I think that this team is raring to go. I think that, I think Ryan Day, since the beginning of camp, has been operating like Devin, is going to be the starting quarterback, Will Howard is going to be the starting quarterback, and he's going to be absolutely fantastic with the way he can run now. It's going to be scary to unleash it. But I think that it'll be interesting to see what the young guys do against Akron and against Western Michigan. You got to get Julian Sain on the field and see what he can do and get him ready to go for next year when he will be competing against Taven St. Clair for that starting spot. I think it's going to be fantastic. So as always, if you guys enjoy this content, we appreciate all that you guys do. Again, this has been a enormous month for the channel. The growth has been incredible. I think that what's going on Buckeye Scoop is unprecedented. It's phenomenon at this time, and we're just getting into the season. We've been in the off season, smashing every record, running circles around the competition, and it's all because of you guys. So we appreciate you guys being on here each and every night. Our regulars are on here. We got 7 every night, 7 days a week. People can't keep up with that pace, and it's really fun to do. And we appreciate you guys being on here. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, click that little alert bell. If you feel amazing, get on your phones right now, Apple Podcasts, follow Buckeye Scoop. We have one podcast feed now. We consolidated it all into the Buckeye Scoop. Give us a follow on that. Give us a 5-star review. Those are huge, along with Spotify. We thank you for that. Again, those platforms are growing like crazy right now. And even if you guys like to just watch it on YouTube, follow the audio editions. Those are just as great for us, and we appreciate all of that. Shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. Our next meetup will be in September. The date is not finalized. Buffalo Wild Wings is opening a new location in Grove City. The construction got pushed a little bit, so we're going to get into all of that. We're going to take your super chats tonight. It's going to be a good night tonight. We got a lot of good intel on what's going on in camps. So we're going to break all of that down. I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevada, Will Howard, who I called Devin, as in Devin Brown earlier. Will Howard is the guy. He's going to be fantastic this year. I think that his, Carnell Tate describing him as a bowling ball when he gets rolling is kind of funny. But he is a big, fast beast of a runner. And I think I think his legs will be the difference maker when we go to Outson in Oregon. I think that when you go on the road, and I lived it with Troy Smith. There's some games where it gets a little crappy. The pass rush is tough. When you have a guy that can motor and move the chains and just go get those yards and slide, not take big hits, it's an absolute game changer. What are your thoughts on Will Howard being named the starting quarterback at Ohio State?
Well, what's been really interesting was, I've always kind of operated under the impression that, most teams do about the same thing. Not that it's equal. Ohio State is clearly a cut above everybody else, but that, most places you go, you get coach. Most places you go, you get strength and conditioning, training, nutrition, consultation. You may not play with the type of players you play at Ohio State, but the general instruction, the general environment, I've always kind of assumed it was at least in the same galaxy. And the Will Howard experience has really kind of put that on his head because, he was barely coached at Kansas State. I'm just telling you, the stuff that he has learned in the 6 months that he's been here at Ohio State, it's stuff that you would think that was pretty basic, that was pretty, self-explanatory, that was pretty straightforward. He was never taught that way. He was never taught that way. His strength and conditioning program, I'd say, was remedial. He came in kind of fat. And now, man, I'm telling you what, he is shredded up. He is about 12 pounds lighter and significantly faster, significantly stronger, significantly smarter about playing the position of a quarterback. When you talk to the people close to him, they say that he feels like he's learned more in the past 6 months than he learned in the past 4 years playing. and I, he was pretty darn good before that. So I can't even imagine what this new and improved version of Will Howard's going to look like out there, surrounded with this enormous talent at Ohio State, and Chip Kelly in his ear, giving him the reads, giving him the plays, reassuring him, calming him down. Um, but yeah, I'm excited for Will, and I don't think people have an idea of how good this kid is going to be. His best football is definitely ahead of him, and ahead of Ohio State for the next 16 or 17 games, and I'm sure excited about that.
Yeah, I think that his size is something that I love. Like I love gigantic quarterbacks because I think that they're more durable than the little guys. Because at some point he's going to take some shots. He's going to get hit. I think the little guys get hurt more. I mean, the Baker Mayfields of the world get dinged up quicker. I think the big guys, like Ben Roethlisberger, and obviously he's not anywhere near that big, but when you get into the north and you get into the cold, and heaven forbid we have a home playoff game and it's snowy, or it's Michigan and it's snowy and crappy, like the big strong armed guys. And I think that the biggest reason why I love Will Howard is for those bad weather games. People don't talk about that enough. Like the bad weather when it rains. And trust me, when I played, I didn't hate the rain because I didn't like being cold, or because it was ugly. I hated it because we couldn't throw it as well. When you have that aerial attack with Ted Ginn and Gonzo and those guys, then all of a sudden it's a hurricane. Like you just can't throw it as well. It's harder to throw it in rough weather. So that would always kind of handicap our offense. Now the '07 team was built for that. And again, when we went to play Michigan, like we proved it. We were built to run the ball. And I think that's something with Chip, with Will Howard and Quinshawn especially. This team is built for all weather, which again, that's something that in the past has given us problems when we weren't tough enough to run the ball and we didn't have enough of, we didn't run the quarterback. Again, running the quarterback is it's so impossibly overpowered that it's crazy. And again, the fact that we haven't done it here is, it's borderline arrogant that we said, hey, you know what? We're so good. We're not going to do what everybody else does. Like, again, I always say it's like, if you're the NBA coach that says, you know what, we're not going to shoot 3-pointers. We're not going to be the team that shoots threes all the time. And like, that's going to be our hallmark, is that we don't shoot threes. I'd be like, well, everybody else does it. And all the best teams can shoot the nets out every night, like the Celtics and the Warriors when they were in their peak with Durant and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Like, that's what it's like when you can't run the quarterback. And now, thank God, they're going to enter the club. Because I think that there's been a little too much coddling and a little too much concern about getting guys to the NFL. Which again, I get it. Like, CJ Stroud should have been the first pick in the draft. You want second overall, fantastic. Feather in your cap. But I think we could have had a lot more dynamic offense if you had ran them and taught them how to slide. Again, Hard Knocks. But yeah, this has been a great season of Hard Knocks as far with the Chicago Bears. Shout out Ryan Poles, who was my teammate. We were both rookies with the Bears in 2008. He's now the GM of the Bears. But they brought out a slip and slide to teach Caleb Williams how to slide. And again, Caleb Williams is a guy who's one of the best athletes in the NFL already. Never played baseball in his life, which is weird because when a guy's a natural thrower and a quarterback like he is, you'd assume he'd been a pitcher or a shortstop or at some point. So he never played baseball. So they brought out the slip and slide, taught him how to slide. And sure as could be, in the first preseason game versus the Buffalo Bills, he breaks off a 13-yard run and he slides. And I was just like, that's my dream play. It's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. Guys are covered. The pass rush breaks down. He takes off, slides, converts on a first down. But everything was covered. And again, they covered Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze, or Adinzi, whatever his name is. And Komet. They have 4 great receivers all covered. So you think if you're Buffalo's defense, you're like, that's a perfect call, executed well. And all of a sudden he scampers and converts. And that's what Will Howard will be able to do this year. And I'm telling you, I lived it. And again, if I didn't see the magic of Troy Smith running in the 2005 Michigan game, I would never be able to speak to it. But his ability to move literally won me and the rest of my teammates in '05 a pair of gold pants because of Troy Smith's legs. And they were, none of them were designed quarterback runs. That was the best part. Like, they were all just him kind of freestyling out there and converting and having the awareness, the situational awareness to go get a first down. So I think that's going to be huge with Will Howard. Again, I love the all weather part of the deal, and I think he's gonna do great things. Again, I know that like guys like Denzel Burke talked tough about him early in the spring and stuff because he's the new guy, and I get that. Like you want to ride with your dog. Devin was here last year, and Devin, he's been here for a couple years now, but you know Devin is the fourth highest paid quarterback on the team. Will's the first by far. So eventually, you got to figure out like, hey, they didn't. It's like taking Caleb Williams number one overall. You're not going to put in, whoever the backup is, Joe Flacco or whoever's the backup in Chicago, some random quarterback as the guy, or like with C.J. Stroud when you take him number two overall, you're not going to say, well, we're going to let Davis Mills start off and make C.J. Ernst keep. No, you install him as the number one day one, and that's what they're going to do with Will Howard. Like when we do this deal in NIL and we go all in on a quarterback and you give him the nut that they gave him, then guess what? Like he's going to be the guy, and the quicker you get to it and you ignore the facade, better it is. Because guess what? Next year it's going to be Julian Sayin, Tavian St. Clair. A couple guys are probably going to take off, and we're going to be loaded at the quarterback room again next year. So again, I'm excited for that quarterback room. I think this is the best quarterback room we've had in a really, really long time. I mean, you can go back to the Burrow room. Obviously, Joe didn't do what he did at LSU here, but I mean, in terms of how it's stacked up, where you've got really, really good quarterback in Will Howard, Julian Sayin, the phenom freshman, and then Tavion, who's the number one player in the country according to Rivals, coming in next year. Like, this is as good as it can get right now. So I'm really excited about that room. Nevada, any other thoughts? And we'll just kind of work our way around the team and some of the buzz we've heard in camp.
Yeah, no, just I totally agree. It's funny, we've talked about the changes in this season. We talked about the expanded playoff. We talked about communications, and it kind of changes the way you watch the games and experience the games. It's not one and done. It's not if we lose to Oregon and Austin that the season's over and you know start looking forward to 2025. But the not being obsessive about checking the weather report all the time, because that's where we've been the last few years. We're checking how's the weather, how's the wind, are we getting any rain, what's going on, because we're primarily an aerial first team, and bad weather affected us, and not in a positive way. And this year with this defense and this running attack, I mean, like, give me the bad weather. You know what I'm saying? Give me the bad weather. Give me the rain. Give me the snow. Give me the sleet. Whatever it is, because we can hurt teams a lot of different ways. And yeah, it's definitely fun to be as versatile as we're going to be on offense. And for defenses, it's just got to be a nightmare, because you generally want to take away what the other team does well and make them do something that they don't do as well offensively. And with this team, what is that? Yeah, I mean, running the ball, passing the ball. I'm telling you, Will Howard is going to win the Heisman this year. He's going to win the Heisman. The guy's a dual threat beast. He's a big stud. He can throw the long ball. He's got all the arm strength in the world. And as you said, he gets rolling like the bowling ball. He'll roll 75 yards down the field for a touchdown. So he's got all the intangibles, and he's going to be a nightmare for the defenses. And the Ohio State offense is going to be a nightmare to defend for sure.
All right, so running back wise, I think Quinshawn is going to be incredible this year as an ad. Trey's going to Trey. I think he'll be good. I think it'll be interesting. Nevada, how do you think they're going to split the carries? Because Quinshawn is, he's a dominator now. So it's going to be interesting to see how they split those two. But how do you think they split it?
I think it's going to be pretty close to 50-50. It might be 60-40 Quinshawn or something. Trey might be a little bit more of a specialist, but he's really good. Quinshawn was first team All SEC last year. It's we're just talking about various degrees of good. I'm convinced that they are the two best running backs in the country, and they just both happen to be on this team. So, before, and just about in any situation ever in the history of Ohio State football, you have the starter, and when the starter trots off the field and you bring in the other guy, there's a little bit of degradation in the running attack because the other guy's just not as good as the starter. Well, that's not the case this year. They're both uniquely qualified. They're both guys that are potential first round picks. I'm not saying they're going to go in the first round. I think it's tough. That's a tough order for running backs, but these guys could go in the first 2 rounds for sure. And I think they're special players, and I think they'll split the load pretty evenly.
What do you see for James Peoples? Because that's the one that I'm interested in, especially in the first two games, because I think they got to get him ready to go. I just think that you've got, when you've got two-star backs, I mean, you don't want to have a lot of wear and tear versus Akron and Western Michigan. Like, you want to let them get 8 to 10 touches, and I'd get them out, and I'd make it the James Peoples and Sam Williams-Dixon show. I would. Running backs are guys that can play early. I think James Peoples is ready to go. I think that you get him in there, let him get his feet wet. Because again, we've just been snake bit at running back the last few years. And I mean, James Peoples gonna have a role this year. I mean, he's gonna have to have a role. And it won't surprise me if Sam Williams-Dixon did too. And James Peoples he's the kind of kid that picks things up fast. He's very physical. I think he's going to be an excellent, excellent player here. But what do you envision for him? Because I would want to get him going. I might even play him in the first half. Just get him a couple touches just to get his feet wet. I don't think it has to be all Trey and Quinshon because, those guys, like, again, I don't want to waste them in Akron, Western Michigan. I'd love to get Sam Williams-Dixon a few touches. I'd like to get James Peoples 5 or 6 touches. Because, again, I just with the history of that running back position, not even Trey, not anything else. Just like with the injuries we've had over the past years, that third running back has played a huge role down the stretch. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the old saying, you need a pair and a spare. I mean, in a 16, 17 game season, you need a pair and a spare and a spare. So I totally agree with you. I think, I think you've got to treat the early games like NFL exhibition games. And maybe you give Trey and Quinshon a series apiece or something like that. But, you're not seriously going out there and running these guys into the ground when you've got guys like James. Oh, Kirby. My Chihuahua's going crazy right now on me right now.
Did she take one of the running backs to win the Doak Walker, and that's why she's mad about that? Or he?
Yeah,
Kirby he?
Yeah, Kirby's a he, and he's upset about something. Something's ticking him off right now. So, but no, no, you've got. Oh, Kirby, get the heck out of here! You've got to get Sam Williams-Dixon going. You've got to get James Peoples going, and I mean, they've been great in the fall. They've been terrific all fall. They've been doing great stuff, and it's been fun to watch because those guys are super talented.
Yeah, I think when you look at some of the guys that can make a huge mark, those third and fourth backs. I mean, they got a chance to make a big impression. Like again, if you can hang it on Akron, again, I know they're an in-state school, and Trust did not like to embarrass the back schools. He really didn't. He did not want to put it on Akron or Bowling Green or Toledo. Because he was a young South State guy. I mean, he wasn't trying to like flex and just now. If we're playing an out-of-state school, we play Northwestern, he'll put it on him. But he did not like to embarrass back schools that were from Ohio. That was just kind of like his thing. And I love Trust because he's classy. And again, I was always like, look, if we're up 35 points in the game, man, like get me out of this game. Like go put all these backups in, man, and let's see if they can play or not. Because I was the king of let's get to 35 point lead and please take me out of the game. Put these backups in, let them earn their check for the week, let them earn their sweat jacket because and not only that, like I like seeing the young kids play because everybody in the world, everyone wants to play at Ohio State until it's time to play at Ohio State. I mean, it's like, it's not the same as practice. And I always laugh when people say, well, you got to practice well and practice is everything. And I'm like, dude, practice is nothing compared to playing in the horseshoe. Like I'm just telling you, it's like when you're in the horseshoe and you're playing tackle, if you screw up, your quarterback can get hurt. He can fumble. It can get ran back for a touchdown. Like Donnie Jackson against Iowa, he didn't switch a twist with Paris and, they hit the quarterback and it was a sack fumble for a touchdown. So, I mean, like, that's the kind of stuff that happens in practice. Like, they're not even allowed to they touch the quarterback and it's blown dead. There's no, it's like, people saying that, practice is just like the game and I want practice to be harder than the game. Herb used to love to say, he'd say, I wanted the practices to be so hard that the games would be easy. I'm like, dude, like, there has never been a practice in history that is harder than a game ever. Because like it's like if someone's practicing to walk a tightrope across the Grand Canyon or something, and they practice it at at some gymnastics place where there's a foam pit underneath, and they fall into the foam. That is way different than actually walking across the Grand Canyon with like a little pole and or the guys that walk across skyscrapers on a tightrope. Like that's way different than just practicing it. So I but I love seeing these young guys on the O line. I would roll Tigra. I would roll Carson Hinsman. I would roll Luke Montgomery. Luke Montgomery's got to play some tackle right now because we've been down guys with the stupid disease that has infected the O line and D line. So Luke is learning how to play everything. Luke is going to be like a utility knife, which is good. It's good and bad because Luke's not good enough to play any one position right now at the level of an all Big Ten guy, but he's learning how to play center and guard and tackle. And I think that that is great for his NFL potential to play all those spots, but he's got to get really good. I mean, you got to be a monster at one of those positions before you can be bouncing all over the place because I think it's detrimental to you. But his versatility has been very impressive in camp. I think that Tigra and Carson are slugging it out at right guard. Carson was infected with that thing, and a couple other. You had like 4 or 5 offensive linemen that were down with that. And I think that set him back. Again, I always talk about when we make predictions, as people say who's going to be the starting line and who's going to be starting O line, who's going to be starting will linebacker. Like Sonny's going to be the starting will. Like that's basically done too. But I always caution against injuries. There's guys that have pulled hamstrings in camp that have been out for a little bit now, and they've missed 6-7 practices, and you do that. If you're a locked in dude, then you're straight. But if you're not, it's really tough, really tough. So I think you got to play Tigra and you got to play Carson Hinsman at right guard. Going into Akron, if you said, Kirk, you have to bet something on this, I would say Carson gets the first snap at right guard. But I think Tigra, if I'm Justin Fry, I'm putting Tigra in the 3rd series and saying, hey, you're going the 3rd series and maybe the 4th series. And then after that, we're going to evaluate it and keep it going. Because again, the luxury of this, and this is one of the greatest schedules we've ever had. Ever. I mean, because you've got 2 games and a bye week. So you can kind of reshuffle. So like when we name people starters at week 1, they might not be starters when they come back from that bye week. So you put guys out there and they vomit all over their shoes. Then you have a chance to make changes during the bye week. The bye week's the perfect time to experiment with new guys at different spots, recalibrate things. And this team does not have many spots that need to be switched. The right guard is about it at this point because I think Sonny's got the will linebacker locked up, and every other spot on defense is written in ink. And I think that everywhere on offense is written in ink except right guard. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how it goes. Nevada, is there anything that you're looking forward to on the O-line? I know Jimmy Simmons is working his way back from the mad cow disease or whatever, and some of these guys are getting back into form, but I think the line is going to be really good. And I might be the only guy on earth that thinks that outside of you, because with Chip and with Will Howard running it, like magically, it's going to be like a swimmer being unhandcuffed from his ankles and his wrists. They took the handcuffs off and also like, wow, he's really a good swimmer now that his legs and arms aren't handcuffed together with a ball and chain around his neck. It's like that's kind of what it's going to be like when you watch the O-line this year. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I just think, and look, Donnie Jackson's got the dreaded lower body injury, which shouldn't be a long-term thing, but that's kind of been hanging around. And like you said, the mad cow disease thing is kind of just wreaked havoc on our cohesion. So look, we talk about starting a lot, and for me, it was kind of like when Josh Proctor started against Notre Dame, then he got pulled after 3 plays and didn't play much after that. So I'm all about who's going to be playing more than who's going to be starting and what they're doing. For Ohio State, they pledged to play more guys. Now, will we see a repeat of the second line in a la 06 Texas game? I don't think we'll see that, but I think you're right. They're going to want to play Luke Montgomery more. They're going to want to play Tigra. They're going to want to play Carson. Obviously, you got Seth, Donnie, Jimmy, and Josh Fryer. You're going to want to see George Fitzpatrick. I mean, you're going to want to see a lot of guys because you've got a lot of guys that can play. You've got the ideal schedule. You've got these exhibition game type of schedule set up in order to do it. And I think Ohio State's going to, they're not worried about getting this thing done, getting this thing all figured out by the end of fall camp. They're they literally have another month after fall camp to get the line right. And I think they're taking it that way. That's kind of their approach. So, the good news is even with any hiccups or with any lack of cohesion or, lack of working together, they're not going to have problems first week because the schedule just doesn't allow that to happen. But, Ohio State's taking a very slow, deliberate approach on this, making sure guys are completely healthy, completely right, not guys that are still battling the communicable disease are not even allowed to work out and with the other guys. They got to go work out by themselves and they can't touch stuff. And I mean, they're being very, very careful about this because they don't want to turn a little thing into a big thing. And I think the offensive line is going to be a work in progress in the beginning, but like you said, it's going to be palpably better because we're off of a hard mode and we're now operating offense on easy mode.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be fascinating. And we'll move to the tight ends. Scuttle, we've heard, obviously. It all comes down to, can we get anything out of Jelani? I think G. Scott is going to be the starter. He's the senior. He's the guy that's been around, kind of a emotional leader. But you've got to be. I say this all the time, and you guys can say Kirk's a hater, but I don't care because I'm right. You have to be on the field, and you have to be very productive to be a great leader. You can't just be talking. You can't just be, doing whatever. Like, you have to be a great player. You have to be on the field. You have to be producing. You have to be grading out a champion every week. Or I mean, if you don't hit champion, you better be real close to hitting champion. And again, the champion thing, or the winning, Charles Lee said winning performances, it's always kind of subjective based on the coach. Because Troy Smith, who is my brother and one of my best friends, and had a phenomenal golf tournament. Like, if you guys want to have fun next year, go to Troy's tourney. Troy's golf tournament was an absolute grand slam home run. Shout out to Danny David. Really, really well done. A lot of fun. But Troy Smith, the year that he won the Heisman Trophy, did not grade out a winning performance a single time, because Jim Tressel was like the hardest grader in the history of mankind. So he won the Heisman and is a legend and has his number retired in Ohio Stadium. And I think he might have had one. But I was like, how is the guy that's the best player in the country not getting a winning performance? But I did. So again, sometimes, you have to always take into account who is the grader. And Tress was just like, he was the East, the Eastern Germany, or judge or whatever, like from the gymnastics thing, that everyone would give the girl a 10 and they give her an 8, or she's the UFC judge that would give the bad decision to the split decision that causes some sort of crazy loss or whatever. But I think the tight ends are going to be, God, man, it's a thin crowd. I mean, I think Will Casimir can maybe hopefully give us something as a blocker. I've watched some of his OU tape, and there's something to him. I mean, obviously we took him because we needed a body. But I think that, you look at what Cade did last year. I mean, I think we're going to miss Cade a lot. I think Cade was a guy who was very underrated. Wasn't a great blocker, but he was a really, really good receiver. And I think he's going to be a really good NFL player. And I don't think people realize what kind of a leader he was. He was a legitimate tough dude, good player. But yeah, I mean, there's some, it's kind of like a Moneyball approach where you got to, kind of piecemeal Cade Stover's production together between G. Scott. I think you have to figure out a way to get Jelani on the field and get him activated and get him, paying attention. And I mean, I feel like Jelani's such a fruit fly that, like, if you don't get him in the game early and involved, and you don't get him in there, like, you could lose him. I've seen guys like this before. So he's got ability, but again, I like, these are the kind of guys that you want to talk about. You don't get paid when you're a coach at a place like Ohio State. Like, you don't get paid to coach Jack Sawyer, and you don't get paid to coach Johnny Simon, and you don't get paid to coach Paris Johnson. You get paid to coach Jelani Thurman. Like, those are the guys you get paid to coach. Those are the guys. Okay, you want to be a coach? You say you're a good coach? Let's see it. this is the one right here. This is the one. This is the this is where your Caesar Milan and you got like a pit bull that's killed 15 other dogs that and you got to go train that thing to make it into like a housebroken thing that you can bring around a toddler. Like that's what Jelani is. Like that's how you got to be. All the ability in the world, and he needs all the attention in the world too. But if you get Jelani activated, I mean, the offense is already scary, but I mean, this would be like if Freddy Krueger and Jason had a kid. Like that's what the offense would turn into with the Predator, like blood mixed in the middle of it. So, Nevada, your thoughts on the tight end room?
Well, I think it's been good. I think that Jelani's coming along and hearing really good things about him, and um, I like what they're doing with him. I like the way that they're utilizing him. I like the way that he's kind of performing his tasks, being a lot more responsible, being a lot more diligent on the blocking. I think the entire group, the tight end group, the wide receiver group, has kind of gotten the message about blocking, and that's I think we're going to see the result. I think we'll see more long runs this year than we have in quite some time, and I really think July is going to have a big impact on it because I've seen it so many times. I've followed Ohio State for a long time, and you just see those guys, and every now and then you'll see a guy where the light goes on. And I know some people like that expression, but I think it's kind of an apt one where they just start to figure it out. The game starts to slow down, and they start doing things the right way, and that's what Jelani's doing right now. And if he keeps that up and continues it on, he's going to have a big year for Ohio State in 2024.
Yeah, I agree. The receivers, there's the big four, and then there's the rest. It's kind of like the old Big Two, Little Nine, or Big Eight, Big Two, Little Eight, like in the old Big Ten. But Big Four, JJ, who's the gargantuan number one. Mecca, I think Mecca's going to be dominant in the slot. Mecca in the slot is the perfect spot. Really, the great thing about how these guys set up is that they're literally prototypes for each spot, which is, the X, again, we'll go through this real quick. The X receiver is as Urban used to say, I used to love Urban because Urban had all these great sayings. He would say, he's like, the X is the Marmaduke receiver. He's the guy that the whole offense runs through. And if he's not a Marmaduke, then you should fire the wide receiver coach and go until you go get one that can go bring you in a Marmaduke. And I was like, I love that. I mean, Urban used to always say Marmaduke all the time. I was thinking that little cartoon. So JJ is the Marmaduke. The Z is the guy that can blow the top off the top of the defense. The guy that can fly. That's Carnell. And then your slot is the guy that can do a million different things. And he's the guy that has to be able to just destroy a corner, or destroy the nickel, which is usually the number 3 corner on the team, or a walkout linebacker or whatever. And again, when we were at our peak in 0506, we had Gonzo in the slot. And Gonzo would just absolutely destroy people. And we played Iowa. And it's not a coincidence that in 0506, those were the 2 best games of his career when he got to walk. Iowa would never sub out into nickel. They always ran through 3 linebackers. So he would have Chad Greenway, who was actually a first-round pick, really good player, for all Big Ten guy. He'd have Chad Greenway walked out over him, and Gonzo would just assassinate him on every single option route and just be so wide open. It was insane. So Gonzo, go look up his stats from the 05 and 06 Iowa games. You'll be like, I mean, if he played Iowa every week, he'd have won the Blitnikoff 2 years, and would probably have been the first pick in the draft with his numbers. So, but that's what Emeka can do. And then Brandon's the guy who can play everywhere. But I think Brandon's best in the slot too, because I think Brandon has some of that running back in him, where he's physical and he's tough and he's nasty. And I absolutely love what he brings to the table. I love watching the South Florida guys play because they're crazy and they talk that talk, you know what I'm saying? So I love the South Florida Express guys. I love that, next year we'll have 3 South Florida Express receivers starting. It's like, it's just beautiful to see. But Nevada, who needs to step up? I mean, Jaden Ballard, this is it. We got Kojo, we got Jaden, we got Bryson Rogers. Jaden is the ultimate, I don't know. Like I don't think that they trust him. I mean, everything that I see and hear is that they don't trust him. He should be, for the guy who's that fast and that athletic and that talented, should be much more productive. And he's got to do more than just run, run a 9 route or go deep. Like he's got to be able to do stuff over the middle, which he can't. But what are your thoughts on the guys outside of the big four?
Well, I mean, it's a busy room, and I mean, you've got some guys that are, you've got walk-ons like Brendan Schramm. You've got guys that are kind of flown under the radar. But for Ohio State, I think one of the challenges this year has been, how do we keep these guys engaged? How do we get these guys involved out there? We've got all these five-star, all these five-star players. How do we get them involved? How do we get these guys, out there on the field when you've got a situation where, you only got one football and you've got so
Mm-hmm.
many. We've talked about, the Trey Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, and we want to get James Peoples some touches, and we want to get Sam Williams Dixon some touches, and like, at some point you're like, man, there's only so many balls to go around once you get past, Carnell and Brandon Innes and JJ Smith and Emeka. But I think for Ohio State, it's going to be, they're going to give these guys all an opportunity to step up. I know they're going to be running these hockey line wide receiver changes out there, and they're going to try to see who can step up and be that fifth and sixth guy. Because I think Ohio State's made a commitment to these guys to play them more, but then the guys have got to step up and do it. Because like you said, if you've got a guy out there like Jade Mallard, and he's got all the talent in the world, but he's just never been found a way to be productive out there in the field, then you can't keep giving him snaps when you've got younger guys
Mm-hmm.
behind him that that deserve that. So I think for Ohio State, it's going to be really interesting. I think we're going to see hockey line changes. I think we're going to see, I think they'll go 8, 9, 10 deep in terms of wide receivers in those first few games, and we're going to see who steps up and deserves those snaps because um, I think they've got to do it. They have to do it in order to prevent these guys from transferring, from hitting the portal. It's a completely different world right now. Everybody's on a 1-year contract. They can leave at any time, instantaneous free agency, and Ohio State's got to manage the wide receiver room accordingly.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that you have to, again, I think that the portal, the way it is now, you have to figure out ways to get young guys involved. And if it means you got to play Julian Sane, play Julian Sane. If it means like some of these guys, like you can't risk losing a guy like that. You got to get some of these guys ready to go because it's the new normal. Again, and again, I love it. I think it's great because I think that there's kids that deserve to play. Maybe Ohio State is something they bit off more than they can chew, and they need to go to Iowa, or they need to go to Auburn or some lesser school, or go to Notre Dame, some lesser school, and see if they have a chance to play. And again, I think it's great because it gives us a chance to basically, it's like if you play poker and you can throw the cards back until you get a royal flush, like that's kind of what it's like to build a roster. Like it's not some accident that all of a sudden, we get NIL and we get the transfer portal, and magically Ohio State creates the greatest roster in school history. Like literally, I talked to at Troy's tournament. I talked to some of the best players in the history of the school, some of the best coaches in the history of the school, and they said they've never seen anything like this roster. You know, and again, and then I go further and I say I've never seen like this coaching staff either. This is the best coaching staff we've had too, to boot. So again, there's always been a couple of energy guys on the coaching staff, and now it's like we only have like one or two. We got a lot of real coaches on the staff now, and it's scary. And Chip is holding guys accountable, and we're gonna have a nugget on that tomorrow on BuckeyeScoop.com because he is not playing. It is not. Everyone thinks Chip Kelly, and he plays the Lion King. He plays the Lion King song in the morning and all that, and everybody gets grass-fed smoothies and all that. It's like, no, it's Chip Kelly's real, man, and he is not scared to call people out, and it is glorious to hear about. Well, I think we'll get into some super chats, Nevada. We can run through the defense tomorrow. I think that'd be a good little thing to do. Unless the hammer drops on Michigan, which would be amazing. All right, Nevada. C. Watts, thanks for the 10. Appreciate you, my friend. Why doesn't Jelani Thurman want to be the guy? All the talent in the world, but won't take over. Do you think it's a tight end by committee situation this year? I don't think it's that Jelani, I don't think that he doesn't want to. I just don't think he knows what it takes yet to really be that guy. I promise you, everybody that comes here wants to be that guy. But does everybody want to put in the work to be that guy? That's the difference. It's like, everybody can say, oh, yeah, I'm that dude, and I was that dude at Buford, and I was, whatever, all, 5-star or whatever. But like, it's a whole different realm when you're at Ohio State and you got to put in that work. And it's like, because you're not just working against like the guys in your tenure, you're working against the guys across the nation. Like he's got to outwork Luke Lachey. He's got to outwork, the best guy. Like that's how I looked at it. Like when I was there, I wasn't just trying to beat Alex Boone and everything. I was trying to beat everybody. I was trying to beat Jake Long, Joe Thomas. Like, and again, did I? No, I don't know. But I mean, I was stronger than those guys. I could run like those guys. And again, it wasn't because I was just, pigeonholing myself in this little the Woody Hayes. Like you got to think big. You got to think like, hey, what do you think those guys are doing? Are those guys getting it in right now? Do I need to go get another workout in? Am I really obsessed with it, or is it just like a job to me? That's the difference. It's like the guys that are great, like Johnny Simon. I used to open at the gym for him on 6 a.m. on a Sunday, so he could go before he went to mass. So I'd go in with him because I was like, well, I'm going to open the gym. I want to get one in too. So I'd go get a workout in at 6 a.m. on Sunday because that's when Johnny wanted to go. So when I was a GA and I had a key to the weight room and I'd be in the Woody Hayes 7 days a week, like it's like, hey, if a guy wants to, if Jeff Hireman would want to work out at 10 o'clock at night, okay, coming on down. I'll see you down there in 30 minutes. Let's go get one in. And I'd open up the weight room. He'd get a workout in, hour and a half, till midnight. It was funny. I mean, we used to call it the werewolf sessions. We'd go at night and just get it in. And we get a group, we get 5-6 guys in there, get a good workout in, and instead of going to the club, those guys would be grinding. I mean, they had goals. I mean, Jeff Harmon wanted to be an NFL tight end, and he turned into an NFL tight end. So it's not some cosmic accident when guys all of a sudden get real good real fast. It's because they do more than everybody else. And I always tell guys, I'm like, look, if you're just going to do what's prescribed by Mickey Marotti, like you're just going to be a guy. You're going to be a jag, just a guy. If you want to be great, like you got to go get it in. And I mean, the way it is, the thing that I'm not jealous of much, but I am jealous of the stuff that these kids have now where the nutrition is all there, which is amazing because again, we were doing it off of McDonald's basically. I mean, we lived at McDonald's, and the recovery stuff that they have where they have the cryo and all we had back in the day was cold plunge, which again, I used to live in that cold plunge. I was like a polar bear. I loved the cold plunge before. Now everybody, it's the biggest fad in the world. Everybody's got to own a cold plunge. I love the cold plunge. I was like, I used to do that thing every day and I loved it because my body always felt way better after I did it. But now they've got the cryo chamber and they've got so much more stuff. And again, the thing I love about all the regenerative stuff that they have is that these guys can go work out even more and not feel the pain. Like the thing that they got my senior year is they got an underwater treadmill. That was the best thing in the history of football. The best thing in the history of the Woody Hayes. I ran on that thing every day. I would run for 40 minutes on the underwater treadmill. I would kill myself on the thing. And I got really, 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 really in incredible shape. Like, I mean, my cardio was crazy. I didn't get tired because you could run on that thing and it didn't make your hips sore. Your legs weren't sore, your hamstrings. Because, if you run on turf, your legs are going to feel terrible the next day. Again, especially when you're a big dude. You get on that underwater treadmill, man, that thing was a godsend. And I wore that thing out. I mean, I would break into the building and use it. I get in trouble for it, but I didn't care because I wanted to use it. So does Jelani have that in him? I don't know. But I think that's why you need to have like a real dude in that tight end room show him that. Again, like, I mean, Cade Stover had to grab him by the back of his head and just slam him into the weight room and try to get him to, force him to be great. And again, that's what Urban Meyer was the best in the history of Ohio State at, is he would not let a guy like Jelani just fall off the earth. He would do everything he could. And again, he wasn't perfect. Jamal Marcus, and we had some guys that I thought had a lot of potential that we still couldn't save, that should have been much better than they were. But he did crazy work with guys that I just, I wasn't sure if we could get it to him, and he did it. Nevada, your thoughts? Why doesn't Jelani Thurman want to be that guy? All the talent in the world, but won't take over. Do you think it's tight end by committee situation this year? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be tight end by committee because they like to play a bunch of those tight ends. But no, I think you nailed it. It's not that he doesn't want to be the guy. It just, you got to be willing to pay the price, and you got to know what the price is. I mean, you got to, it's not just about doing stuff. You got to do the right stuff and do a lot of it, and be relentless. And not everybody's wired that way. For a lot of people, athleticism in life has come easy. They've gone out there, they've been the biggest, fastest, strongest out there on the field, and they get to college, and it's no longer that way, and they're not sure what to do. And other people figure it out pretty quickly that they got to keep grinding. And I think Jelani's just taking a little bit longer to kind of figure out what he's needed to do, but I'm telling you, he's figuring it out now, and it's good to see.
Yeah, I agree. Be wet. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for the deuce. What are your thoughts on Georgia being ranked first? I think it's fair. I mean, Georgia's won 2 national titles. Obviously, they didn't get it last year with Michigan. But as much as it's not supposed to carry over, I think that some of that carries over. Their quarterback is the Heisman favorite. They're the top team in the SEC. Nick's gone, so I think it's going to be, even more pronounced how dominant they're going to be in the SEC. So I'm fine with it. And again, this is coming from a guy. We were wire to wire number 1 in 2006 until the last poll. So I don't care about the polls at all, especially now that there's 12 teams to get in the playoffs. None of it matters. Just go win every game. So I think it's fair. Honestly, I like it better than Ohio State being number 1 because, I want us to have some sort of a motivation, something to aspire to. Like if we're number 1, like it doesn't matter. I think that the adulation can be toxic sometimes. So I would rather that we were 2 or 3 or Oregon. Something that'd be great is if Oregon somehow jumped us and they were rated ahead of us going into that game. I'd be fine with that because the only poll that matters is the last one. It's the only one that matters. All the rest of these are all just cannon fodder for the politicos to write their stupid ballots. And again, these ballots are so corrupt and they're so stupid. I mean, there were like 4 Kansas State people. Like Michael Bishop didn't put Ohio State in the top 10. Because we took Will Howard. There's like 4 Kansas State guys that didn't rank Ohio State in the top 10 or 15 or something crazy. So, again, the bias is real, the corruption is real, but the only thing that matters is just win all your games and go hoist the trophy, and then they can't take that from you. Nevada, your thoughts? Again, be what? Thank you for the deuce. What are your thoughts on Georgia being ranked first?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember a time. I mean, when Ohio State won the national championship in 2, obviously we came from way back, and in 14, lost to Virginia Tech in week 2, weren't exactly highly regarded. So no, I wish that somebody could heap more disrespect on us than being number 2 in the country right now, frankly, because I just think it's so hard, and it's going to be even harder going 16, 17 weeks in a row at number 1 with all the pressure that's kind of coming. Being number 2 just feels better. So I'm hoping the longer the better that we can stay at number 2, and if we were number 3, that would even make me happier.
Something that I'll always remember, and I've talked about that on the show, is I was in Vegas with Kim when we played Cincinnati. They had Gunnar Kyle, who was the old number 1 overall quarterback that went to Notre Dame, and they played Cincinnati, and they smashed Cincinnati. I'll never forget, we were at Emerald Stadium, which I think is closed now, and I looked at the big board of BC. It was the championship odds, the playoff odds to win the 2014 national championship. This is the week they played Cincinnati. They were playing Cincinnati that night. Ohio State was 75-1 to win the national championship. And this isn't like some Cinderella story. I said, I laid down $1,000 and I just loved the Buckeyes. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, because I just, that Virginia Tech loss was so bad by that point in the season that I was like, I didn't think we were going to get in. I really didn't. Again, it's not because I don't love Ohio State. It's just because Virginia Tech, the week after they beat us in the flukiest loss in maybe school history, they go out and lose to East Carolina. Now, we didn't know that Lincoln Riley was the offensive coordinator for East Carolina, but the East Carolina team was actually pretty good. But they lost like 2 or 3 games by the time we played Cincinnati. So that Virginia Tech loss was just like terrible on our resume. And I was like, oh my God, because if it comes down to us or I think it was Baylor or whoever, like, are we really going to be able to get in? I don't know. But yeah, that was not my finest moment, not betting on the Bucks. But again, it is what it is. Mello, what is up, brother? Thank you for the 5. Do they run mostly 20 personnel and RPO off of it? Nevada OH.
I owe.
Oh, and I want to do a quick and Sean Shock, you are the absolute man. I appreciate you. Happy birthday, Barb. Barb is on here every night. She's one of our most loyal people. She always leaves great comments in our YouTube comments. So I just want to shoot a happy birthday, Barb. Again, if you guys ever have a birthday shout out, send me a note, buckeyescoop@gmail.com. I'd love to do that. Again, especially for our regulars. Barb's on here every night. Scoop family is real. So I appreciate you. I hope you have a great birthday. I don't know. Nevada, do you think they run mostly 20 personnel on RPO off at 21 is that'd be if they had Quinshawn and Trey both in the game at the same time. 21 means for people that aren't hip to the football vernacular game like Mello is, it's 2 running backs, 1 tight end. So if it's 12, it's 1 running back, 2 tight ends. So the first number in the equation is how many running backs are on the field, and the second number in the equation is how many tight ends. But that's the vernacular that a lot of NFL teams like to use. 10 personnel is like empty, or not empty, excuse me. That's like a 4 wide receiver set. So yeah, I just thought I'd break that down real quick for people that didn't know what 21 personnel was. But I mean, I would love, again, that is probably the most intriguing thing, is how much do we put both those guys in the game at the same time? And who do you take off field? Do you take one of the tight ends off, or do you take one of the receivers off? Because again, there's my favorite formation in all of Madden is 3 receivers, 2 running backs, no tight end. I run that all the time, and I just shred teams with it. So I put guys in motion, swing it out to them, fake there's a lot of stuff that you can do that's really creative. You can just fake and you can run inside zone, pull it, swing it out to the running back who's running a little flare route, and that is so hard to cover. Because if you don't honor the inside zone as a linebacker, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. And then you run a slant backside to JJ. I mean, that's my favorite personnel in the world, is 21 RPOs. What are your thoughts on that? Do they run mostly 20 personnel on RPO off it? I can see 21. I could see 11. It just depends. Like, I don't like taking Brandon Ennis, or I don't like taking Emeka or Cornell or Ennis off the field, but that's just my opinion. I'd go 4 wide with 1 running back, and that'd be my base personnel predominantly. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they like 11 a lot. I mean, they'll run some 2 back, and they've done a lot of that. A lot meaning as not as a base offense, but they've run some interesting things, some fun things. Chip Kelly likes that kind of look right there, where you've got Trey and Quinshawn on the field at the same time. But I don't think it'll be anything more than just kind of I won't say not. It's more than a novelty, but not a base lick, if that makes sense. I mean, their base lick is 3 wides, 1 running back and 1 tight end, and I think that's kind of the thing that they're most comfortable with. That's kind of that ultimate hybrid between the Ryan Day passing offense and the Chip Kelly rushing offense. They can do a lot of good things off of that, involving the wide receivers in the running game as well. So yeah, but I can't wait to see when they've done some really good things. I mean, some really wonky things with the 2 running backs. They're having them handed off to each other, and reverses and zone reads, and I mean they're doing passes. So yeah, the 2 running back stuff will be fun, but I don't think we'll see it as much as maybe we'd like to.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. So next super chat, and again, Mello, I appreciate you, man. Congrats on Buckeye Boys. You guys check out Buckeye Boys. It is picking up steam. Appreciate you, my dude. Jay Dizzle, 234 Hall of Fame City. Thank you for the 5. Any news on David Sanders Jr.? I believe he's playing both sides, Ohio State and Tennessee, on social media right now. I don't know. Like I said, the drama queen offensive linemen are not my cup of tea. You guys know that. I've seen I see I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I know what he asked for in NIL. I'm not gonna say what he asked for because it was insane. It was stupid. I'm not trying to embarrass the kid. I don't think Tennessee even gave him what he asked for, or what he asked Ohio State for. But again, I'm not making excuses. Like, this little, if we don't get this kid, it's a loss. But these guys aren't all losses. Again, I don't take some of these kids. Josh Petty's number got leaked. It was 3 years, 800 grand a year by Georgia Tech. Is he worth that? I don't know. Again, if you said, Kirk, you are now the GM, you get to run the show now. I'm saying, all right, well, we're going to spend money on guys that have played college football before. That's what we're going to do. We're going to develop some linemen. But if you say, Kirk, we got to go find a left tackle or right tackle to replace Simmons if he goes pro, or Fryer as a senior, let's go find a guy who's played football before in the college level. Let's pay that guy. I mean, we played Josh Simmons, and I mean, I don't think there's a guy. I don't want to go too crazy because I'm sure that there's a couple of highly rated. The kid at LSU is real good. He's a first rounder. There's not 10 tackles in the country I'm taking over Josh Simmons athletically right now. There's no way. So, again, that was a guy that we got from San Diego State. He was a 3-star kid. He looked like Urkel when he came out of high school. Now he's a force, and he's the kind of kid where you get him with Mickey, beat the tar out of him, turn him into an offensive lineman and not just an athlete. And you've got a guy that can be special. Again, it's a lot like he's nothing physically like DeWand, but they're just both freaks of nature that needed coached up. DeWand obviously is the biggest player we'll probably ever have in the history of the program. He's like 6'9", 380 pounds or whatever he is, pass blocking machine. But that's kind of what Josh Simmons was. He was a much smaller version, not anywhere near as heavy as DeWand, obviously, but similar style athlete, incredible athleticism, incredible feet, great twitch and explosion, and all the stuff that you can't really teach. Like I said, I was not in the same universe of athleticism as Josh Simmons, but Josh doesn't play as hard as I did. If he played like I did, then he'd be the top 10 pick. But that's the thing is, like, does he really want to be great? Because he'll be a high pick just off of his athleticism. But if he really turns up, then who knows, what he could be. I mean, Josh Simmons reminds me a lot of Mike Adams. Not anywhere near as tall. Mike was 6'8". Mike was enormous. Mike was a prototype left tackle looking dude. But if he really turns up and decides to be great, then there's no ceiling on this kid. But that's up to him to turn up. Again, it's just, and again, those are the guys that you get paid to coach. Like, you don't get paid to coach Jack Mewhort and Norwell and those guys. You get the guys that are self-starters and monsters. Like, you get paid to coach Jimmy Simmons, turn him into a first rounder, which he could be. Nevada, any news on David Sanders Jr.? I believe he's playing both sides, Ohio State, Tennessee, on social media right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, I will never say that Ohio State loses a kid to NIL, because our NIL right now is competitive or better than anybody. Like, they've made that commitment. We're not going to get beat on NIL. But as you mentioned, there are limitations. And at some point, you've got to kind of draw the line, and you've got to kind of have a limit in terms of what you can do. And I completely agree with you that this year, the way that they put out NIL money to keep kids at Ohio State and to get kids in the portal, that's how I'd be spending my money. I mean, that's how I'd be spending my money. I'd be looking for kids that have been developed here, that have played here, that have performed here, and that want to stay here for an extra year. That's where I'd be spending my money. And I'd be spending my money on kids that went to smaller schools, that balled out and proved they could play. But those types of the David Sanders type of recruits, I'm just it's not my cup of tea. I don't think it's your highest and best use of capital. You don't have an unlimited amount of capital to spend on something like that, and I just don't think it's the highest and best use of it. Um, I think he's going to Tennessee, but Ohio State hasn't raised the white flag, and whether that means they're going to continue to fight till December or they're just going to wait to see what happens here. But they haven't surrendered on the David Sanders thing, even though it seems to me pretty obvious that he feels like a Tennessee type of commit, an SEC type of commit, with the kind of stuff that he's doing right now. And you know, I wish him well. If he doesn't come here, I wish him well, and we'll be just fine. But we'll all know shortly, at least his initial intentions here in the next few days.
Yeah, and like I said, if we get them, great. If we don't, great. Again, we've lost kids, and I know people will be jumping off the Lane Avenue Bridge, but I just don't. I mean, I'm too slick to the game where I don't sweat losing these kids. I know there's people that want to tar and feather Justin Fry, but when we lose a kid to Georgia Tech or Tennessee, like I don't know, like it's just different to me than losing like an Ohio kid to Michigan or something like that, or losing an Ohio kid to Notre Dame or Penn State. Like that stings more. But when a big kid from the South stays in the South, like I don't know. And again, and I you guys know, like the thing about us is that we give you guys the most honest Ohio State coverage there is. We're not controlled by anybody. Nobody can threaten us. And that's why we have the highest ratings in the history of Ohio State football for a podcast, is because we're honest. We give you guys a real clean critique. We're very fair. We have, we're not, like I said, we're very thoughtful in our approach. Where if someone deserves to get cracked, we'll crack them. I don't like to do that, but if someone really screws up, we'll let you know. But if not, like we're not going to. And again, everyone's going to crush Justin Fry if we don't get this kid. But I've heard what he's asked for, and if I was the O-line coach, I wouldn't want him either. I'm good. You can go to Tennessee. You know who I'm going to go get? I'm going to go get some guy that was a first-team all-conference guy who will hit the portal. And let's say, hey, let's spend that David Sanders money on this guy. Because again, if you give David Sanders this insane deal, and all of a sudden he shows up and he sucks, which could happen. Again, I've seen guys that are 5-star, greatest player in the history of mankind guys show up to Ohio State and suck an egg. And I'd be like, the guys on the current roster would be like, you're paying all that money for this turd, really? And again, it's not being a hater, but I mean, when you reset the market and bring in some freshman who might not even be able to play next year, and you're trying to win a national championship, and this kid's, driving, a Lamborghini to practice, and he's like redshirted, or he's standing on the sideline watching, like to me, it's a waste. Go spend that money on Caleb Downs. Go spend it on Quinshon Judkins. Go spend it on Josh Simmons or Seth McLaughlin or Will Howard. Guys that are going to step in. They're plus locker room guys. They're huge additions to the team. And you'll never regret it. If I'm going to spend that money, he better be JJ. He better be a guy that walks in and is a flat dog. And JJ is worth every penny. And he got a lot of pennies. I mean, he got like multiple semi-trucks full of pennies to come here. So... But again, I just, you guys got to understand there's an equal and opposite reaction when you take a kid. And again, the demands I heard were insane. I don't want to say, 'cause I don't want to embarrass the kid, but I was like, yeah, I'd let him walk too. Steve Brown, thank you for the 10. I appreciate you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. I'm ecstatic to have both backs, but Judkins is the better back, in my opinion. He's the do-it-all type player for any down. Trey has talent and track speed, but the best ability is availability. O-line slob mentality. I love that. O-line slob mentality. That's big time. That's the old Jack Mehort Norwell thing. They used to call the O-line the slobs. I didn't like that because I used to always like to look the part. I didn't really want to feel like a slob, but I also wear a black hoodie everywhere I go. So I guess that shows about my mentality. Well, you're not alone in the people that think Quinshon Judkins is better than Trey. I mean, it's pretty chalky that a lot of these preseason magazines have Quinshon as a preseason All-American over Trey and preseason All-Big Ten over Trey. There's some that have both of them as all Big Ten, which would be amazing if you had two running backs both make first team All-Big Ten. But, he was first team All-SEC last year. So, I mean, he was really good. And we've had, I think Trey's got as much ability, if not more ability than Quinshon. But, Quinshon, they kind of ran him into the ground at Mississippi. So he had these really sparkling stats, and that's part of the reason why he came up here. Is he's like, dude, I don't want another 350 touches. I want to make it to the NFL and actually see a second contract. So he came up here with Trey and Chip Kelly's offense. And obviously he fell into Chip Kelly's offense, but Ryan Day's offense. But, like I could see it either way. Like, I mean, I'm not going to, there's stuff that Nevada and I debate on. And, we generally are pretty like-minded on stuff. But like if he said Trey's better than Quinshon or Quinshon's better than Trey, like, this isn't one that I'd really fight to argue either way, because I think that they're pretty similar players. They're both great players. Trey had some injuries last year, and he was in a scheme that I didn't think was great for running the ball. So I don't know. And not to mention our receivers didn't block, which is going to be a dramatic change. Read the nugget on BuckeyeScoop.com. It's going to be beautiful tomorrow. But Nevada, What are your thoughts? C. Brown says he's ecstatic to have both backs, but Judkins is the better running back. He's a do-it-all type, great friendly down. Trey has talent, track speed, but the best ability is availability. Excuse me. O-line slab mentality. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Well, I mean, look, Quinshon's a great running back. I mean, again, but his stats last year with Trey were almost identical. They're virtually identical, and that was with Trey running in a vastly inferior scheme. And when I hear track guy for running backs, generally I think of Brandon. When I think hear track guy, I think Brandon Sane. That's what I think of. I think of running back, and I think that's really doing Trey a disservice because Trey's so much more than just a Brandon Sane type of running back out there. He's not just a straight line speed guy. Um, I think he's a terrific all around running back. I mean, Judkins may be a little bit better than him. I think they bring different things. I think Trey will break more long runs, and Quinshon will break more tackles and get it in. But they're both terrific running backs. But yeah, it's gonna be fun watching both of them. And what a pleasure to have, and what a luxury for an offensive coordinator to have two guys like that.
Yeah, like I don't think he's a track. To me, when you say a track guy, that says he's soft. He's a track
I
guy,
think so
straight
too.
line guy.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
doesn't. He doesn't. He
yeah.
doesn't want to put his nose in the A gap, and he doesn't want to run between the tackles. He wants to get on the edge and run sweeps and run gizmo and gadget plays. Like when you say track guy, it's like Jaden Ballard. Like Jaden Ballard's knock is that he won't go over the middle. He's good at running 9 routes and going deep. I mean, you don't get hit when you run a deep route. I mean, because they're throwing it behind the guy. So but I mean, are you a guy that can go over the middle, or are you a track guy? Like track guys, they just run straight in a row, and if you throw it over the guy's head, and I happen to be open and catch it, then like when I think running back track guy, I think like there's classic running backs in the NFL that are just speed guys, and but once they get in that hole, man, they're allergic to contact. They can't read the blocks, and again, I think a lot of people that watch football, they think that it's just like run in a straight line and hope that there's a hole there, and maybe, but like really good running backs can read blocks. They can read, depending on the play. If it's a tight zone play, they read the front side tackle all the way back to the backside double team, and they wheel it. They find the crease. If the end gets covered up and you can take it out to the edge on the zone play, great. That almost never happens unless you're playing a complete turd of a defensive end. And generally, you gotta press it and roll it back behind and back behind the double team is usually where the hammer is, and that's usually where you can get your crease. But Trey's not a track guy. I'm not speaking of C Brown. I appreciate you, my man, but I think I've seen Trey, heard about him in practice, hammer guy. I'm talking drop the shoulder pad and kill dudes in practice. And he's been like that since his freshman year. And that's why when we were first really high on Trey as a freshman, we were saying he's like the next Saquon Barkley. Like that's what he was. Because I mean, physically he looked like Saquon. Saquon is a freak of nature running back, speed demon, freaky, strong. I don't think he's quite to Saquon's level. Saquon was just a different animal. But, the physicality, no fear, drop the shoulder. Because again, there's some running backs that are soft. I played with running backs that were soft. And again, people are saying, "Oh, Kirk's so mean and he talks trash," and guys, but I'm just honest, And I mean, you guys can know who they were. Like we had Maurice Clarett was not soft. Beanie Wells was not soft. Pittman was not soft. There were some guys that were just absolute monsters. But that being said, Trey he's a physical dude, and again, I think that's why he gets hurt because it's physical. I mean, some of these guys they get, it's like a putative, it's a double-edged sword when you're a real physical back. You're gonna get dinged up sometimes when you're not just running out of bounds and whatever. So I love Trey's mentality. I think he's a lion. I don't think he's scared of anything. And I think him and Quinshon, I might die because I love running back play so much. I love physical running backs so much. I have Sunday ticket. Like you go against me fans, I take like 7 running backs to start the draft because I love watching great running backs. I love watching physical running backs that are tough. I think Christian McCaffrey is just extraordinarily tough. I mean, they give him 30 carries. At San Francisco, nobody does that anymore, but the Niners do with Christian, and he is tough as nails, running the ball. And I love watching great physical running backs. And watching Trey and Quinshawn will be. I don't want to say it's going to be the pinnacle of watching running back play at Ohio State, but having two guys like that is so rare on one team that I'm excited for it. I'm not going to lie. And I can't. And the first time they truck somebody, I'm going to be throwing all the hot cocoa in the Nevadabuck Loge, like sky high. It's going to be out of the ceiling. It's going to be so great. I can't wait. So, yeah. But yeah, I love Trey Henderson, and he came back and he helped get us Quinshawn. I mean, nobody does that. Donald and Karen at Rossback, thank you for the 20. I hope you guys are both doing great. Thank you for an Ultra member as well. We are flying into Toledo tomorrow to see our daughter and granddaughters. Very excited to be going back to Ohio. What are you expecting from Trey and Judkins this year? I believe they could both get to 1,000 yards. Nevada OH. I should say Kirby OH, because that would be hilarious if they don't. That'd be great. Kirby OH. I think that the plan is to get them both 1,000 yards. I think that if I'm Ryan Day and I'm Chip Kelly, and you got to remember, Ryan Day he's as stat obsessed as Urban Meyer was. He loves stats. He loves big sparkly numbers. Which again, the only number I cared about was winning. I don't care if we get 5 yards or 5,000 yards. As long as we win, I don't care. Now Ryan and Urban, they like to leave the starters in and get more throws and more touchdowns and whatever. But whatever. I think that they're going to try to make it a point to get 1,000 yards. And again, when we're playing 17 games, it's not really that hard. It really isn't. I mean, you get, you get 17 games, 80-ish yards per game for both those guys. And you have a game or two where you go for 150, you're kind of eating into it. I think they could easily look at 1,000. And I think that would be a great recruiting flyer for Carlos Loughlin, who is a godsend on this team. Carlos Loughlin is like a bolt of lightning inside the offensive staff room. And I love everything about Carlos Loughlin because we used to have a lethargic, low energy running backs coach. And now we have a guy who's literally like, I mean, he is a lightning bolt and he is always on tilt and he's awesome. So I love Coach Locke. Coach Debo, he looks like Debo from Friday. If you've seen him, dude, he's the first guy on the curl machine every morning, I think. So, I think they could both hit 1,000. Nevada, your thoughts? And again, I'm glad that you guys are getting back to Ohio. Ohio is the heart of it all. I love Ohio. Nevada, what are you expecting from Trey and Quinshawn this year? Do you think they could both get 1,000 yards?
Yeah, it's literally only 58 yards a game if you go 17 games to get to 1,000. So, they would be really, really, really disappointed if they don't get 1,000. And if they're anywhere near that at the end, you'll see one of those guys get fed to make sure they get to 1,000 because that's certainly a goal for the season. I think it'll happen organically. I think the numbers those guys are going to put up when they actually start playing and they start playing, volume is going to be crazy because this offense is going to be crazy. And, it's already, like I said, they're operating against the toughest defense in the country, every single day, doing a good job even with a piecemeal line. And when they get up, in the games against other opponents, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to move than it is against the Buckeyes. And I can't wait to see the running game this year because it's one of my guilty pleasures. Trey's one of my favorite players. Quinshawn's one of my new favorites. So I can't wait to see them all rolling out there.
Can you wait to talk to the people that said that Mayan was better than Trey?
I mean, or what I love what you were talking about earlier about how the Kansas State people were mad, so they're voting Ohio State down because they got Will Howard. I thought Kansas State wanted to get rid of Will Howard. Remember that whole thing? Oh, Will Howard stinks and he was benched and he can't play and blah blah. And I'm like, where do these narratives start and why do people repeat them? Because it's so silly.
Oh God, it's like you get dumped and you start the narrative about somebody else. It's so stupid. I can't even speak at some points. Let's see. Mike Green. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for the 5. It's easy to call someone a track guy when you're not in the A gap trying to tackle him. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like when you're in the, and again, the A gap for people that are, learning football vernacular, I try to make it real simple. The A gap is the gap between the guard and the center. So like, if you want to talk about where it really goes down, where's the mosh pit in football? It's between the two guards and the center. Like that is where it is the nastiest. There's a lot of bodies. There's a lot of double team. There's a lot of linebackers flying in there. There's blitzes in there. I mean, that's where it's real nasty. So it's like, I mean, I just, yeah, like I said, track guy to me is a connotation of soft. And again, I'm not it's just my opinion. I'm not trying to see Brown. I know what you're trying to say, but I think that I do not think Trey is soft. And again, I think track guy is like the classic, the receiver that doesn't want to go over the middle, or the running back that only wants to run out to the edge and doesn't want to put his nose up in there, doesn't want to pour the ball. He wants to balance everything. Because there's some running backs that want to balance everything, and they don't want to make a football play and just go get 5 yards on a tight zone play, which 5 yards is, you get 5 every play, you're going to lead the nation in rushing. So, there's some guys that they don't want to get those gritty yards. I don't think Trey's the guy. But Mike, I appreciate that. That is a great comment. Devin, what is up, my man? Ohio 7715, who is an ultra member and a wrench. Here we go, Nevada. Nevada, please tell us how you feel about the scum up north. One of their beat writers predicted they beat us by 3 this year because Will sucks. Talk about a QB that sucks. Orgy, Nevada OH. So, what are your thoughts about that? How do you feel about Michigan this year?
I mean, I think they're the most overrated team in all of college football. I think they'll be the most underachieving team in college football. I think there's about 9 reasons why you could, point to that. Yeah, staff attrition, cheating attrition, losing guys at key spots. Incidentally, just before we get too far, because we're on the topic of Michigan, J.J. McCarthy now out for the season. He is the first quarterback in the modern era since 1967 that was drafted in the first round to lose the entire first season to injury. So of all the quarterbacks drafted in the first round since 1967, he is the first one to lose his first year all to injury. That's a crazy stat, isn't it? You think I couldn't believe that when I saw it.
Is that karma for cheating?
I think it is. I really believe that it's. I believe it's the world just speaking and just kind of going, "You cheated. This is what happens. Karma kind of catches up to you when this happens." And that's what's going on. But I mean, look, Michigan's got a tough schedule. They don't have a quarterback. Orgy cannot play. I'm telling you, they're going to be going to Tuttle. They're going to be going to Chris Olave's old high school quarterback, the guy with the 7th year of eligibility, which I don't understand how anybody gets 7 years, but that's the soft world that we live in now. It's that we're going to have people playing college football till they're in their 30s. But no, I think they're really going to strike, and I think I think it's going to be a shellacking in Columbus this year, and I'm willing to put real money on that, and I've put real money on the future. I bet that futures line all the way up. I bet Michigan all the way down from 9.5 wins. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is on Michigan underachieving, and we'll continue to monitor this through the season.
So you're saying that, like, I'm not going to be able to cash my JJ McCarthy for rookie of the year ticket. I can't cash that one now. Just keep my money.
Yeah,
is that how that works?
Yeah, you trading for all the JJ McCarthy thing in your little keeper league or something like that probably wasn't the right thing to do right now. You know what I'm saying?
I should trade for him. That'd be a great move. I could probably get a 3rd round. I could probably get him for a 3rd round pick. Because all I have right now is Herbert, who's got plantar fasciitis, and Deshaun Watson, who's like trash. So I am pretty stacked, but I'm thin at dynasty quarterback. So if I can get JJ for the 4th round pick, put him on IR, stash him.
Oh yes, God!
I mean, I got Cody Pickett. He sucks. So I mean, it's like I couldn't get a quarterback. I won the Super Bowl last year, so I picked 12th. So I don't like Caleb's gone, and the guy from the Commanders is gone, so it stinks. Price of being good. All right, Nevada. I think we can wrap this thing up. A great show. Any final thoughts?
No, just another slight for another Ohio State player. Cody Simon left off the Butkus watch list, although they put C.J. Hicks and Sonny Styles on it. But we are the worst in the world. Jerry Emig is the worst sports information director in the world, and we do not promote our players. And as a result, Cody Simon left off the Butkus watch list for linebackers this year, and I think it's criminal, but I'm kind of used to it by now because it happens every single year.
It's bad, ain't it?
Bad, just terrible, terrible.
Not good at your job. Yeah, because Cody Simon's probably going to lose. I mean, if you said, Kirk, which linebacker has the best chance to be all Big Ten this year? I'd probably say Cody. I mean, because I think Sonny and CJ, I think Sonny's going to probably play much more than CJ, but they'll platoon a little bit. But Cody's never going to leave the field, so he's going to be stacking up tackles left and right. He'll lead the team in tackles unless there's an injury. Again, I don't. Nothing is absolute in football. A guy could get some sort, and that's what's killed Cody in the past. He's had the shoulder injuries, and he was kind of out for a long time. So now he's healthy. He's hungry. Fighting to be an NFL draft pick, and I love everything about Cody. And again, we've got timestamps from 4 years ago talking about Cody Simon, and now it is finally his time because his shoulders got ripped out like it was a Mortal Kombat fatality, and now he's back to whole and healthy. And last thing, Nevada captains are going to get announced pretty quick here. Do you have any predictions? Obviously, I think Trey and I think Emeka and I think Jack Sawyer are locks to be captains. I'd be shocked if they weren't captains. Are there any other guys that you could see? I don't know how you keep it under 6. I think you go 3 on offense and you make Donnie a captain. I think he makes sense probably over Fryer because he's played longer. I think Will Howard is a real dark horse to be a captain. Defensively, I think you got a real shot with Cody Simon. And then in the back end, do you go Lathan Ransom? Do you go Denzel Burke? Jordan Hancock? I mean, this is one of those years, man, where it is really hard to pick captains. And I mean, if Ryan, I think 8 is a little crazy. I hate when they do that. But there's years where there's legitimately guys that should be captains that aren't. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, Cody Simon. When you talk to the guys about who gets the block O, they all talk about Cody and how much he's persevered and what he's meant to the team. So, I mean, to me, that's gotta maybe equal a captaincy as well. Or maybe they use that as kind of placating, maybe doesn't. But no, there was a year that screamed for 6 captains, probably this year. Got so many guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you could probably make a really good case for 8, but I think you got to settle on 6. And I'm settling on 6. I'm going Will Howard, Donnie, and Emeka on offense, and defensively, I'm going Jack Sawyer, Cody, and I'm going to go Denzel. But it's hard. It's really, really hard.
It's really hard. Very difficult year. All right, we're going to wrap this thing up. Appreciate you guys. Another great show. As always, we appreciate it. Thank you, Scoop family. Again, this has been an incredible ride. Another huge turnout tonight. Thank you guys for always being on here. We bring it. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for the super chats that goes to pay it forward. Sign up a bunch of new members to BuckeyeScoop.com. If you guys are not members of BuckeyeScoop.com and you love this chat, you love this show, it is basically like our podcast, except it's 24 hours a day. And it is always cracking. The most active message board in Ohio State history. It's absolutely awesome to be a part of. Great people. You guys make a lot of great friends on this chat. Make a lot more on that board. It's fantastic. So I appreciate you guys so very much for all that you guys do for the show. Again, it's all because of you guys. It's a huge show because you guys make it one. So thank you. That being said, if you enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Again, you guys are the best. Appreciate you guys for all you do. Shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. If you guys feel especially fantastic, subscribe to our Apple Podcasts. Just click on your phone, go to Apple Podcasts, type in Buckeye Scoop, click subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. That is humongous for growing this channel. It's absolutely free to do. Takes 5 seconds, and it really helps us grow our show. So we appreciate that, and thank you guys for all that you do. So thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. And happy birthday to Barb. Appreciate you. And big shout out to Sean Schrock for pointing that out to me. Thank you, my man. Great first day as a wrench for you and Sean Rollins. So thank you guys, along with Devin, Akeem, and Kim, for being the best mods in the game. You guys have a great rest of your night. Go Bucks.